So I guess I'll look over here while I'm talking to you. Dallas Alexander's with us today, and I wanted to have this conversation for a while because, number one, we've become friends, knowing you a little bit prior to the Sean Ryan show, and then obviously everything exploding on Sean Ryan and all of the drama that came with that. But you're also Canadian, and you're also ex-JTF2 and a sniper, and so we have a very loose connection, meaning I'm a grunt. I was a grunt and you were doing the cool shit. So we're not on the same level at all in terms of military. But when it comes to the rest of the world, you and I are in the same community and we're doing a lot of the same things in terms of trying to speak out about a lot of issues we're having with Canada, about issues in terms of mental health and about the way the government is handling things. And we want to do this in person because you're I do it in person now. Because after Sean, you're like, I do it in person now. So here we are.
Well, you did say, you're like, at one point, remotely is going to be what you favor. And then I've done a couple remotely. I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't have to leave the house. There
it is. Yeah, I didn't have to like travel. Perfect.
This is good. I traveled for it.
I know. I appreciate you traveling for it. So we're in Toronto. So this is not my set, if you guys can't tell.
Or mine.
Or his, but it is our friends, Kat and Nat, the girls at the Shallow End, and they are awesome podcasters from Toronto, and they have a great show, so I do recommend you go and listen to it. But that being said, they so graciously allowed me to use this studio, which is built for Lego people.
Yeah.
And not Dallas Alexander.
I hit my head twice already.
It's already the best day ever, so I'm really excited about it. So, I mean, let's just dive in. Like, how did we meet? Do you remember how we met?
On the line.
On the line?
Yeah, we met
on the line. I kind of saw and heard about you briefly through a few different other people in the community. And I knew that you were JTF2, but I didn't know the extent in which you were JTF2. And I didn't even know that you were a sniper, I think, when I first met you, which was an interesting kind of understanding because when I think of snipers, I don't think of 6'5" people. You feel like targets.
Be very sneaky, guys.
Yeah, very sneaky targets, 6'5" targets. Which makes total sense for the Canadian military. Total sense. They're really picking you guys well right now, huh?
That's right.
Well, so let's talk about, there's literally a million things that you and I can talk about, but let's dive into very briefly, give an overview, tell everybody kind of a little bit of who you are if they haven't seen you on all the other podcasts you've been hitting.
Okay. My name is Dallas. Born in Canada, raised in Alberta, little tiny Indigenous community, which we call a Métis Settlement of about 300 people. I think we probably topped out at about 350 while I was growing up there. Kind of in the middle of nowhere, backwoods upbringing in the forest a lot, playing hockey a lot. I joined the military 2005. Okay. Sorry, like around Halloween of 2005. I went to basic training. Spent some time as a grunt as well. 2 years and 3 PPCLI in Edmonton. And then off to Dwyer Hill, JTF2, I did selection in 2008. And then spent the rest of my career for about 16 and a half years there.
Did you want to be a sniper when you got in?
Initially, I just knew that I wanted to go to JTF2. I didn't know that much about the military, to be honest. And actually, I still don't know that much about the military. When I got to like basic training and the soldier qualifying stuff and the infantry specific training and then got to battalion, that's when I was like, oh shit, I want to be a sniper. Because I saw that there was like just a little different. They were across the hall in recce platoon when I got there. I was like, okay, that looks cool.
Right.
And then I wanted to do that immediately. And I became a sniper in PPCLI in the Reg Force before I went to the unit. And then after I think two or 3 years at JTF2, I did the sniper course there.
What does that process look like? Because for a lot of people going into the Canadian military, you go basic training, SQ, DP1, or whatever your trade training is. But to get into selection, because I know it's really different in the United States for selection versus Canadian selection. It seems like you have to do a lot more time before you can actually be picked or go and even try to do selection.
Here or there? What do you mean?
Here.
Oh, yeah. So it's, or at least at the time, so this is now, information is old, so don't quote me on it still, but it was, you had to do 2 years serving in a Reg Force battalion of some kind, or just a Reg Force position. It didn't have to be infantry. I think you could be 2 years as a musician and then go on selection. Yeah. The overwhelming majority of people that make it through selection are from the infantry.
Right.
But yeah, it was just 2 years in the Reg Force. And then through your chain of command, you apply I tell them, let them know, look, I want to go on selection. I want to go to JTF2. You do, after support from your chain of command, you do like a psychological test, a couple of PT tests, and then your file gets sent off to JTF2, and they decide if you're fit to come on selection.
Why JTF2 and not CSOR?
I didn't even know there was a CSOR, to be honest, when I first got in. Okay. I had only heard, and this was working in the oil field in a hockey off season. The guy I was working with, he did like a stint as like a comms guy or something.
Okay.
He just, through us chatting hours and hours and hours of working, he mentioned this unit, JTF2. And I was like, well, what is that? And he started telling me about it. I didn't even believe him at first. I didn't think Canada had a counterterrorism unit. And I was like already in my 20s.
Perfect.
But when I confirmed via the dial-up internet that he was telling the truth, I was like instantly hooked. I was like, because I was deciding at this point, this was like one of my last years of junior hockey, if I was going to keep playing hockey and just try and grind out a career playing hockey, I was not going to go to the NHL, but I could have probably played some semi-pro stuff. Mm-hmm. And then when I found out about this unit, JTF2, I was instantly hooked. I was like, that is what I'm going to do.
Did you see like was it the promotional videos they do? The guys like fast roping in and like they're all black and they got like the masks.
Yeah, totally.
That was it?
I watched that one like 100 million times. And it was like the worst video ever.
It's so
like all
bad.
Grainy and like they're just doing push-ups in the mud. And for some reason, I'm like, that's for me. And I was laser beam focused. I was hooked. Like, it's like, that's what I want to do. I watched Black Hawk Down like a million times. Yeah. Tears of the Sun. I was like, I'm going to go
just leaned in, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So when you played hockey, so you must have been fit enough then. How was the selection for you? Because for somebody that doesn't understand what selection looks like, we hear so much about the Navy SEALs. We hear so much about the Rangers and actually less about the Rangers, more about the Navy SEALs, but we hear about BUDS. We hear about what that training is like. What does that look like when you were in for Canada to go through that selection process? Yeah,
it was like being an athlete before definitely helps. I found with basic training and the other courses, it was very...
Hey humans, I know you've all been seeing me drink HVMN's Ketone IQ lately. This is a game changer. Jet fuel in a bottle. I use Ketone IQ for everything in my life, whether it's running, cycling, podcasting, or just the extra boost that my brain needs. I won't lie, it helps push me to the next level in all things. I love Ketone IQ and what HVMN stands for. Go grab some shots today at hvmn.com and use the code BRASS20 and save.
Like it wasn't very hard physically.
Really?
No, like basic training. No, I found that.
Like that was a cake.
That stuff I like thought was easy. I could see that like the drawing from everyone in the population, and I was very prepared for that. Selection, on the other hand, even after preparing, so I was in battalion and we trained like every single day. I knew that's what I wanted to do, so we were training all the time, and it was still incredibly hard.
Yeah.
I think the conclusion that I came to, and this was seeing guys go to selection from battalion that I was training with that were much fitter than me and coming back a few days later and like, oh shit, we didn't make it. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. Being fit matters, but no matter how fit you are, you're going to be pushed just a little bit past that.
Right.
And it really becomes a mental game. Like you can be very fit, but if you have some quit in you, they're going to try and exploit that.
Yeah, I was going to say they're going to go for it. Yeah. How long is selection for JTF2?
7 days. 7 easy days.
7 days. So okay, hold on. So in 7 days, you can go from being an infantry soldier through selection if you get through 7 days.
Yeah. So like I said, the part that gets you there, the psych test, whatever, but you can be from battalion, 7 days. Now, there's a bunch of people that go to selection.
Right.
After 7 days, they assess each individual candidate's file and say, okay, are they invited to come on the assaulter course?
So you can pass selection and not be invited?
Oh, yeah, totally.
So what happens? What happens then? You just go back to your unit?
Let's go back to your unit, yeah.
And then wait to come back?
Yeah, some people never want to go back after going to selection.
Okay.
Or some people just find it, a little bit more motivating, work harder and try it again. Yeah.
How many opportunities do you get before they're like, yeah, it's not for you?
I don't actually even know. I luckily passed my first one.
Excuse me here. I passed my first time. I never had to live that life. So it's really interesting. For people who are wondering what's happening, one of the co-hosts of this is crawling on her hands and knees in front of us. And I feel like That's a piece of information I was wondering whose phone
I was going to
that
ask. I thought you brought 2 phones.
Okay, and she left her baby in the car. This is great. I really wish you guys were witnessing what's happening right now, because she came in with a cane today because her back is so bad. So the fact that she just crawled on her hands and knees is everything to me. Again, these girls are great. These girls just making it happen for us here.
That's good.
Okay, so that's interesting, because I always wondered that, because I know buds, like, isn't there a certain amount of times where like they're like,
Yeah, and I think there was a number.
Yeah. You're just not
and
aware of
like
it.
you have to. There's some criteria too. Like you have to, show enough potential that whatever they deem not fit, you can have some time to fix and come back. I don't know what that number is.
No, I'm just always interested in that, because like you said, you're like, I don't know much about the military. It's like, I know about my trade. I don't, when I talk to a lot of Americans, I think the one common denominator is like, they know the military. They know their history. They know like the Marines, know everything about every Marine that's been famous. That's you get it.
I don't know anything about any of them.
Either do I.
So I know barely any of their history. I don't even know like the officer ranking.
No,
system.
me either.
I'm like, I don't know.
And all the new ranks that they use. Because you got out, what year did you get out?
Last year.
Okay, so you're fresh out. So you saw the transition of the ranking and all of those.
Sort of. Like we never wore any uniforms, so like I'd never seen new epaulets.
Yeah.
Like I didn't really go anywhere where I would see them very often. So
I remember going to last year. I went to New Brunswick. I went to Gagetown to do my last round, and I was walking around, and I realized I didn't recognize any ranks. I literally had no idea who I was talking to.
All I know is you're a no-hook private.
Yeah, you're something.
Like
That's about it. Other than that, I got absolutely nothing. But it's, the Canadian military is very different than the United States military, and I want to differentiate that, because there is a stark reality here where there's the JTF2, and then there's SEALs and Rangers and Delta and all these other go fast guys, but you don't really hear about the JTF2. That's not a conversation. There aren't movies made about them. They're very hush hush. And why do you think that is?
Well, I think we're newer, for one.
Okay.
Like out of all the units you named, we're the newest. I think that all of the units, from the SAS to Delta and the SEALs, like at one point you realize, or maybe somebody realized, that in order to recruit anyone, like you need to at least have your name out there a little bit. Like if I literally didn't work in the oil field with a guy that was a comms guy in the military,
Right.
I would have never heard of this unit maybe. And I would have never joined, and it's like, you don't know about it. Canadians don't know about it. Half the people in the military don't know about it. And now, there's different attempts to get the word out and stuff, but I think it's important to...
Hey there, humans. I know you guys have seen it, that crown on the top of my head. Well, that is from Three Horses Hat Co., and they are 100% beaver felt hats. That's the highest quality hat you can get, and each one is handmade in Nashville, Tennessee. Three Horses does both custom and one-off hats. They've never made the same hat twice. So if you design your own, they'll never make it again. If you feel like you can't find a hat that fits your style, that's all right. Go check out Three Horses Hat Co. Use the code BRASS, get 15% off. Embrace the fever. Live the dream.
To have a knowledge. Now, there's obviously some operational security things to go with that.
Of course.
And that's with any unit. Doesn't matter what level you're at. But the stories, successes, lessons learned, I think these things need to be passed on, because they're inspiring for people. Like when I was getting like hyped up to go, like I looked into like, that's the only time I started reading military books, like special operations,
Right.
things that have gone down with SEAL Team 6 or Delta, and then movies like Black Hawk Down, and like it's these stories that come out, even if they're, Hollywood puts their spices on it, it's inspiring to know. And if they never came out, then I don't know, who would you be selecting?
Well, and that's the other thing too, is these movies highlight these units and these people, and they do massage, if you will, the truth on some things to make it more exciting for others. And so I can see why people are drawn to becoming a SEAL and drawn to becoming a Delta operator and all of these, because I didn't know anything about Delta operators until Black Hawk Down. I didn't know that was even a thing. I didn't know they existed. And I think they liked that way for quite a while. They're very different than the rest of the operations community, which is interesting. I'm starting to, learn a little more about them through people like Tom and through Kyle and all these guys who are starting to talk a little bit more about it. Tom Satterley has a great book. He was involved in the operation that was Black Hawk Down.
Okay.
Tom Satterley and Jem Satterley, they have a organization called All Secure, where they work with special operations, husband and wives, and they take them on retreats and help get them communicating and all this really awesome, really, really great resources. And they, it's interesting to kind of watch their progression and Tom heal through all this process. And they're huge advocates for special operations, especially for marriages and things like that, because the divorce rates for special operations is 94%, I think, on average.
Is that the status? Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's like, why do you think that is, Dallas?
Well, there's a lot of factors.
Really? Let's talk about those factors.
Sure. For over a decade, I was gone or deployed 6 to 8 months a year.
Right.
Every single year. Like whether I was deployed to like on an actual operation or if we were gone training, it was, you're always gone. Like it becomes like, it's a space where you just grow as different people. Like you're growing up. And also it's like, you know, from 20 some odd years old, depending on when you get to a unit like that, to whatever your marriage lasts till, like the formidable years and like the character that you're going to be. Yeah. And you're just growing apart with the person that you share a mortgage payment with.
Mortgage. I love that you say a mortgage, but you have kids.
Yeah.
You have a lot of humans.
I've got lots of kids.
Yeah, you got.
Love kids.
Again, yeah, I love kids. But that seems to be the thing, though. It feels like with special operations, it's like the divorce rate's super high. There's children involved. It's a difficult place to be in, because on one side, it's admirable to be sacrificing your life to go and do this type of service, because ultimately there are consequences regardless. It's difficult on the children because the parent's gone, but yet the dads or the mom are doing something really fantastic that they can be proud of, but they're still missing out. Yeah. They're still not a part of your life near as much as, they should be, because let's be honest, a lot of different professions take people apart and move them around all over the world. Yeah. RCMP.
Yeah. It's like an interesting thing to balance. I think one of the pluses of at least my career I can speak to is when I was back from, let's say, overseas, we would have a big chunk of time off, and then you're there like every day, all day with the kids. Right. And as long as you can appropriately process things so that you can be present with them, I don't know, if you're to calculate all the hours and I'm there, versus someone that goes for, 10 hours a day, comes home and is like, I hate my job all evening until they go to work again. Right. There's a trade-off. But being just gone, especially the earlier years, like Afghanistan tours where you would like you'd like phone call, every like week or whatever. And like little kids don't want to talk on the phone. No. Later on in Iraq, we'd have like, I could FaceTime them like twice a day, to the point where they're just like annoyed. Yeah. That made it a lot better, but I don't know. It's a balance and a sacrifice either way for sure. I think it's just like having those, when you have those moments, just be there.
Talk to me about the processing, because you bring that up, and I want to know a little bit about that, because you are doing such long stretches. You are not getting decompression time technically throughout those, like any other conventional soldiers. Like, so for us, we did our decompression halfway or however it was scheduled out. Mm-hmm. We got the 3 weeks and then we would come back to the deployment. What does that look like for someone who's in special operations?
Before I answer, do you find that helped?
No, it made it worse.
Okay. I've heard mixed things.
Why? What's your opinion on that before you answer the question?
I never had it that way. So I was just unsure of like, cause I know that when you're in that mode, I wouldn't necessarily want to be like pulled out of it and then go back in. Yeah. It's just, I found, you're focused and aggressive, and it's like, I don't want to go sit on it like at a bar on a beach. And I'm just like, I'm thinking about what the mission is when I get back. Right. I think time on the tail end of a rota before you go home to do some work is good. But ours was always different. Most of the time it wasn't a break like that. I think my first tour in Afghanistan ended up being just about 8 months, and I think we took like a 3-day break or something in Dubai. So I just went back with like a massive hangover. Did you
go to the base within the base in Dubai?
No, we stayed at like a nice hotel on the beach.
This is what I'm talking about here, people. This is
a lot of good sushi.
This is what happens. It might as well be Air Force at this point. That's interesting to me. Yeah, because for us, Dubai was a stopover point on the way there, but we got a day. You had a day to go in and out, but that's That's about it.
Yeah. So that one, I don't even like, I guess it was a break, but it was only a few days. I don't know. Like, and then I think every other deployment I did was all on the tail end. We would go somewhere for like, and it wasn't that long. We'd do like a week or something before we go home. That's about it.
That's it.
Yeah.
So when you come back though, and you're processing, or you're, let's be honest, while you're drinking and while you're processing that way, do you feel like you're provided enough tools, or you feel like that's actually enough to be able to come home and decompress properly?
I think there was an attempt. I just think the entire process is misinformed and misguided. Like for me, I was processing every day that I was gone. I didn't wait. Like I would literally meditate after almost every operation. I would wake up and have a morning routine with the sun. Like it's a lot of hippie shit, but like I was putting in a bunch of work on the front end to hopefully not have to do it on the tail end.
Okay.
And I think we could teach that better. I think we could talk about the entire process of a career in something like special operations or the military. It's not just about it's like you learn how to fight, you learn how to go, train every day on guns and fighting and knives and all these insertion methods, all these different things. And like a tiny fraction of your time is like, oh yeah, once you're done, you're going to talk to a psych quickly to make sure you're good to go for the next one. Mm-hmm. Instead of the focus being like on a full circle. Like you can't be fit to fight forever if you're not like fit. That means physically and mentally. So I don't know. I thought about it a lot when I was getting into the military, and I'd read about like I've read the On Killing book and what is this other book? On Combat. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, so how do I get ahead of this before, I'm like, oh shit. And I think just while I was in these places and situations, I was just really trying to work on the processing of it. And I think it can be taught better.
For sure can be taught better. Tell me how you found those books, because we've had him on the show early on at the beginning of when we started the show. How did you find those? Were those like prescribed reading? Did that come to you on your own?
No, that came, I think it was someone when I got to Battalion in Edmonton, 3VP, like one of the guys recommended it, or it was on like a bookshelf or something in Battalion. And I was reading a lot at this time because, like I said, I didn't know anything about the military. Mm-hmm. So I was reading books about previous operations. I was reading stuff like that. And then I was also reading different things on, psychology or mindset and performance and things like meditation and stuff like that. So I was just trying to be as prepared as possible because I knew where I wanted to go, which was JTF2, and I assumed it was going to be pretty intense. And so I just wanted to be prepared for that.
So you think that they could be doing a better job on the front end. How prepared do you think the individuals you were with were? And did you see the difference between you and them on the back end because of your prep on the front?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people. And I'd say this extremely humbly, but like everyone I worked with was like 99% unbelievable with a pistol, with a long gun, with para operations, with driving, with all the fighting, like all the things where that's where our focus is all the time.
And brought to you by Mindful Meds. You guys have been seeing me take Mindful Meds for a little while now. Mindful Meds is a premium supplement company dedicated to supplying humans with the tools to improve their mental health, clarity, and performance, all while supporting their growth along the way. Whether it's the Immunity Blend, Lion's Mane, Inspire, or Voyage, all of their products are clean, tested, consistent, and they've become a huge help in my life. I found Mindful Meds over a year ago now, and I've never looked back. Go check out their website, mindfulmeds.io, and use the code BRASS at checkout.
But there wasn't a lot of focus on taking care of your mind, on the tail end of things. And there's a couple little things, like I said, like the meeting with the psych after a roto. And half the times I fucked those off anyway. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, nah, I don't like.
And they don't force it either.
Questions. Well, they'll be email. Did you go to a week later, and then it's forgotten about, and I'm at the range. And I don't know. I just think as much focus, or at least a bigger percentage, needs to go into that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of tools you can use to process things as they happen instead of locking it all away for a long, long time. And then it's like, boom, when everything is silent, if your brain has not been silent for a long time, like it fucking floods out.
Yeah, and silence can be deafening.
Yeah.
It really can be. It can be the thing that really, it shocks your system when you go from all the noise to the dead silence, the
Loudest
dead
thing in the world.
the loudest thing in the world. Talk to me about your routine a little bit, and don't sugarcoat it. I want to know the whole routine, and I want to know what you found most effective in that routine.
So I think the meditation is one of the biggest things. Like, I'm a fan of some type of morning routine, regardless of where I am. Even on the OP, like when we were in a hotel, I would go to the back, I would suntan and just meditate and be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
So like, I'm healing.
Yeah. And just like looking at what your thoughts are, letting go of things, coming back to present. I'm just a huge fan of what that does for people. And it's simple, you know, some people call it meditation or prayer. There's a bunch of different things that just get you back to the present moment. Because when your mind is racing and running all over the place, it's when you get, you know, you think back and you're like regret and sad and all these different things. And you think forward and you're anxious about what could happen or might have happened. And when you're present, it's very hard for those things to like creep in. So if you can practice that, and then it just becomes a bigger and bigger part of your day, then there's less of your day kind of given to your mind racing. So that was the biggest thing. Like, is a meditation. I would like do like a journaling practice, physical fitness. Like, I'd work out. If we weren't out, I was doing some type of workout every day or a couple times a day, depending on what kind of time we had. You know, and then just what you put in your body. If you know, it's just such a big picture of all of it. What goes into your brain, what you're focusing on, what comes out, physical activity. Like, you learn this all after, right? When you're in like the health space, but it was stuff I was really trying to learn the entire time. And I didn't always do it perfectly. That's for sure.
That's okay.
Drank a little too much a few times. That's for sure. But the daily things for me that were important overseas was like a meditation, a workout if we were not out somewhere. And even if we were on an OP, it would be a body weight workout of some kind. Getting sun, and like journaling was another one. Like, just you can put shit on a paper and you're like, oh wow, it's out. Which is why I love songwriting so much now. Not to jump way ahead.
No, it's okay. We're going to jump all the way around. I keep looking over at the camera because at some point I'm going to have to reset it. So that's why I keep checking the camera. If you guys are like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I'm staring at myself.
Like a big screen is very awkward.
I know, it's very hard to not be distracted. Okay. No, the reason, we can jump around. I got no issue with that. So talk to me about the music, because journaling, art therapy, all of these things are really, really, really great, but you are a musician now. So was that something you took up prior?
No, I could kind of always play a couple chords on a guitar since I was not always, but like 18 or 19 years old. I just never really, it was never really something. I could play a few and my guitar would sit in the corner of my room for, 6 months or a year. And it was actually, I had a really hard time. So my brother passed away in 2018. And I thought to this point, I had all these tools to process things from all this time overseas and all this craziness. And I was having such a hard time. It was the hardest thing I'd ever gone through. It was so unexpected, just like, and you know, when you have a life of expectation, your ego takes it very hard when something changes that drastically. And he had a music studio in his basement, and we'd talked, you know, at some point, like recording a song together, and I never did because I wasn't ever playing. And then when he passed away, I started playing guitar like every single day and started writing songs, and it helped so much. It was like, I don't know, journaling times 100. And between that and massive doses of psilocybin.
Okay, we're really jumping. We're jumping so far.
It became something that I found a way to process and like become kind of at peace with.
So talk to me about your brother a little bit, because sorry, my brain needs this. Talk to me a little bit about your brother, because
are we doing shots?
I mean, have a shot with me. Have you had one of these?
No.
You've never had one of these?
No.
These are the ketones that you see me whoring out. They're the best things that have ever happened to me.
I always see you shooting these things.
Yeah, they're really good. So they're amazing. They're fuel for your brain. They help keep you really clear. And they help you think. Like, your cognitive ability after this, I find, is quite shocking. Now, let me preface this. When you drink this, it's got an interesting taste.
Oh God.
So I'm just, cheers. Enjoy.
Cheers.
Yay.
Yeah, that does taste good.
It's not supposed to. It's supposed to work. There's no additive, there's no caffeine, there's no sugar, there's no BS.
Okay.
Just feel for your brain.
All right.
And I use them a lot.
Feel it.
Yeah. So we were talking about your brother. Because it seems like his death really kicked off for you this whole new exploration of music. So like, let's dive into that, and then we're going to bounce around a few other things.
Sure. What would you like to do?
So ultimately, you grew up in Alberta, and you are Indigenous. And so for the American listeners, Native American, that's what we call our Canadian Indigenous. I want to know a little bit. I want to know about your brother, but I want to know a little bit more about your Indigenous heritage, because in Canada, we have a history of grabbing up Indigenous children and then putting them into residential schools. And then if you don't comply, we just murder you, put you in a grave, and don't talk about it.
Yep.
So how is it that you were able to beat the statistics that are in the Indigenous community comparable to the rest of us?
Well, I think that a huge part, like a gigantic part, is my parents, my upbringing. My dad was from the same settlement, and like I think his family from before that, like we were there a while, our bloodline. So like the family line has gone through a bunch of different bullshit with the residential schools and the government, and not trusting the government all the time. People think maybe you should, and I don't think you should.
I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why you would feel that way at all.
Yeah. But no, my parents, like my upbringing, I am extremely blessed. Just they did such a good job, in my opinion. Okay. I always felt like I could do anything, regardless of stats or what I was seeing around me in the community. And I just remember always feeling that way. Like no matter where we lived, in whatever condition, like we didn't have a lot of money at some points in our life, and it didn't matter. I felt like, like this current situation doesn't matter. Like shoot for the stars, and I'll be able to do anything. And they just fostered that, and I like tip my hat to them as a parent. I think a lot about how they raised me and try to emulate like all of the good things with my children as much as I can. And it's all because of them.
It's interesting for the American listeners. And the reason I bring this up and I try to break it down is because I realized this week when I was in America, having these very open conversations about a lot of different topics in the media, nobody in America knew about the residential schools.
Yeah, well, they don't know much about Canada for the most part.
No, but you would think after the mass graves started to be popping around, you would have heard something.
Yeah.
Because I grew up beside a reserve, and my mom used to teach soccer. And then there was the buses for the white kids, and there was the buses for the Indigenous kids, and we weren't allowed in the pool at the same time. There was complete separate completely. And it blew my mind. It was Roseneath, Ontario. Okay. And it just absolutely shocked my system. And then I learned so much about how the way that we treat our Indigenous, but also a lot of the reserves don't have clean running water. Yeah. There's rampant alcoholism, and we don't give any of them support, but yet we're so willing to just wipe over their land and take everything else from them.
It's crazy.
I can see that's
well, it's crazy. Like, but I also I've got a lot of mixed opinions on this. So like the one thing is, when I start having this conversation with people, I think that we need to recognize that every single person on planet Earth is on some other person's land from some point. Mm-hmm. So like, it's one thing it doesn't sit well with me to be like, hey, let's start this podcast, and we just want to recognize that we're on Treaty 8 land, blah, blah, blah.
That's a hard
no.
Like,
okay, well then fucking give it back. Like, it's simple. If you're recognizing that this is theirs, like I'm going down the street, I just want to recognize that I'm using this new cell phone that I just stole from Kelsey.
Yeah.
Like,
give it back.
Give it fucking back. Or don't say it, because exactly. I don't think it needs to be said. Like, and where does it go back to? Do you know, like you're walking around England, you're like, oh, I just want to recognize that I'm on the land of the, you know, whoever's family 1,000 years ago that went to war. Human history there's so much give and take and war and violence and madness. I don't like how we're dealing with that right now.
No,
in Canada.
I want to hear about it because people don't want to talk about that and they don't want to give the honest opinion on that.
Yeah, and I think when that's the narrative, there's a lot of victim mindset that keeps people oppressed in the positions that they're in. Now, on the other side of the coin, the government was real fucked up to the Indigenous people for a long time. And I think it's good to recognize those things and say like, okay, here's the shitty deal that was made or whatever the case is, and then look to actually help. Right now, I feel like it's more of like like everything else, like a virtue signal. Like, here's what we want to do. We're recognizing that we're on Treaty 6 land, blah, blah, blah. Like, who the fuck cares? What is that? That doesn't solve anything.
It's like the orange shirts.
What are the orange shirts?
You don't even know about the orange shirts?
What are the orange shirts?
So when it came out that the schools were being found, the mass graves were being found across Canada, Canada Day got canceled that year. And in British Columbia, it was like, we're not celebrating Canada Day.
Oh, really?
No, you didn't know about this?
No.
Okay, yeah, so they weren't celebrating Canada Day. And they made a separate day it was Truth and Reconciliation Day.
Okay.
And it was the first Truth and Reconciliation Day. And where do you think our great Prime Minister was on Truth and Reconciliation Day the first year?
Like flying to surf or whatever.
Oh, you mean he went to Tofino on a holiday with his family?
Yeah.
So what they would do in the schools is they were selling these shirts at like London Drugs and Shoppers Drug Mart and Walmart, and they were orange. And then they said, like, we love all children. And then it had some Indigenous designs on it.
Okay.
And then they wanted all the children when they went to school that day. I think it was August 31st, if I'm not mistaken. That might be roughly around the time. It was August and some time. Okay. And then they had the children wear that. And then they promptly went to all the schools and told all the children about what had happened. And then my child came home bawling his eyes out going, Mommy, are you going to leave me at school and never pick me up again?
Oh my God. What the fuck?
You're doing it, Canada. You're doing it. So my I guess my point in saying that is it's a frustrating place to be because we do this thing where we virtue signal, like you said, and like I said this week, it's like saying, here's your thoughts and prayers in a war zone. They don't do anything to help anybody except for the person verbalizing it.
Yeah.
And that's a struggle for me, especially with the Indigenous population, because there is such a rich history there and the cultures are so welcoming and loving. And I've seen that from the moment I've been little to all the way up in British Columbia and some of the tribes that are there that I know who have come down with Warrior Angel Foundation and done incredible things. But it's a really frustrating thing to watch because there's two sides of the coin.
That's right.
There just is.
Well, and that's like everything. One of my biggest problems that I have with the entire fucking world is that we don't seem to see that there's two sides to literally everything. And there's a balance in between all of the people yelling. And that goes for this same conversation. And I think that like being open-minded, getting ourselves out of these echo chambers that we're in because everything we search online agrees with us and everything we search will be like the opposition's worst spokesman comes up on my feed. And I'm like, oh, is this what everyone on the extreme left is? Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
There's a conversation that needs to be had in everything. We could sit here and have a conversation about, like anything where it's like, okay, yeah, I agree that compassion is really great.
Right.
But it can go too far. And it goes for everyone. And everyone sacrifices convenience for compassion at one point in their life. I don't give a fuck who you are. The only way not to do that is to sit in one place and die of hunger. If you want to have the conversation all the way down to like where there's not any balance, you're just compassion all the way. You'll be born, you're going to die in the exact same spot so that you don't step on a bug, let's say. Every topic that is like so insanely blown out of proportion now is just because we can't have a conversation about the balance that is in there. It's like the territory land, like all these things. It's like I'm fully 100% for Indigenous people. We should give them everything they want. Or like, Oh, well, okay. But what about there's a bunch of corruption in these different settlements? The money goes places and reserves. The money goes places and disappears in a lot of cases. There's a whole bunch of things like, instead of like, okay, well, maybe there's somewhere in the middle that we could meet that would make it better for everybody. And I think social media makes it so much worse.
I mean, social media, it's twofold. Again, two sides of the coin. You can watch it and you will be miserable, and you can echo chamber yourself into this stupor where you reverberate information because you can't think outside of yourself, or you can use it to connect with people, stalk people, and get them on your podcast. Yeah. Which I do effectively.
You control the trolls.
Dude, and I troll the trolls because that's what you deserve if you troll me.
I think that there are a lot of pluses to social media. And like anything, if you use it in a mindful way, then yes, I totally agree. But I think by design, it's made to attempt to make you mindless. Like just here's, okay, what do I want to see next? What do I buy? That thing? Okay, perfect. What subscription do I need? Here we go. More time, more scrolling. But yeah, there's a ton of pluses to social media if used.
So
properly.
Talk to me about your brother growing up with your brother then, because you guys grew up, like I said, you guys grew up on a reserve. You grew up in Canada.
A Métis settlement.
A Métis settlement. My apologies. Again, Canada in schoolings called them all reserves. There was no separation from anything.
Well, we shared a lake with a reserve. So
my apologies. So so then I was right. Asshole. Just such an asshole. God damn it. Talk to me about him, because he seems like he was a really important person in your life.
Yeah, for sure. Well, he's my older brother. So like the growing up part was, playing sports. He started playing hockey. I started playing hockey, spending time outside fishing and hunting and all that stuff. We kind of, when I want to say around 18 or 19, I was still in school. He moved away. Like we kind of grew apart a little bit. Mm-hmm. We didn't have FaceTime either. So he like flipped my phone and, hey, what up?
T9.
But then really started getting a lot closer once we were kind of adults again. And it was always such a peaceful thing. Maybe go back and like we'd just go spend the day fishing. I grew up in a place called Fishing Lake. It's really good fishing there. And hunting and just doing all this nature outdoorsy things that I love to do. And then music was big. He was always like, he was in a band and he had a studio in his basement. He was recording local artists and stuff like that. I was just, at the time I thought I was too busy with work, like at JTF2 to like start playing the guitar and start learning how to do this stuff. So I just kind of kept putting it off. Until when he passed away, I was like, the fuck was I waiting for? Yeah. And then like every single day since then, like I play or sing or write or do something. Yeah.
So you find that has been a really good transition point for you?
Oh yeah.
Utilizing music as a tool?
Oh, for sure. It was a much needed transition in terms of like transitioning from having a very hard time processing his passing to now, and then a transition from military into being a free civilian.
Free civilian. Are you really
no
free,
leave
though?
pass is required. I just have one. I base that off of one thing, and that's requiring a leave pass.
Okay. Okay.
Because I'm not really that. They're still bugging me. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. Well, we're gonna dive. We're gonna go so far down right now. Okay. So it's not unknown. It's quite it's out there. Everyone knows about it, and if you're in our space, you know about it. You sat down with Sean Ryan and you did a 2-part series podcast, because this was at the time when you were only doing it in person. Yep. And you decided that you were going to let loose on everything because you were a part of some really serious operations that are known in history. And frankly, our government released and were bragging about you. Was it 2017?
2017.
2017. So Trudeau's on the front cover telling how you guys are heroes and bragging about the longest shots in the world and how your team is profound at doing that in Canada. Just like, oh, Canada's the best snipers in the world. And we are. I mean, it's fine. But, and front page, global, you name it, you guys were all over it. Cut to 2023. You go sit down with Sean Ryan, who's a mutual friend of ours and former Navy SEAL. And he's also a sniper as well. And you told your story. You told why you left the military because you were booted. You talked about vaccines. You talked about everything. You talked about the shots. And what came after that? What happened after that?
CanSoftCom sent a cease and desist to Sean Ryan to take down the first episode. And in my opinion, that was because of what was coming in the second episode. So the first episode, we talked about operations that I had gone on. Anyone that I was comfortable talking about, it wouldn't be some type of OPSEC breach. And then the second one was about my exiting of the military, or my exiting of Dwyer Hill Training Center and then the military, and how that happened and why, and all the things that went down with, the mandates that came in and how ridiculous it was. So I think the cease and desist to take down the first episode was so that the second one wouldn't be out. And what they asked was like, for operational security reasons, you need to take down these episodes and we will tell you what can go back up. And I'm like, you idiots. Like, they sent it to an American.
First
Navy
off,
SEAL
a Navy SEAL in America.
Fucking Tennessee. So it just, I'm like, I thought it was ridiculous. But they had some conversations in between the two episodes. He had a lawyer on to discuss what they could do, what was appropriate for him to do, a bunch of different things, a great discussion. What came out of all of it was that the big concern was that he posted a picture of us with night vision on our helmets.
So you just had nods on.
Yeah, which no one would know that special operations use night vision. And I had posted that same picture, I don't know, 5 times probably up to this point.
Yeah.
No one had a concern. And actually, when I was leaving the military, I went to the chain of command and I was like, okay, I'm getting out this was like 6 months out or something. Like, I'm going to be posting pictures and videos about my career. If there's someone here that is going to be concerned about it, and this was like while I was like getting tossed. And I was still like, okay, if someone's going to be concerned, give me a person to talk to. I'll vet every single post before I post it. I'll say, here's the picture I'm going to post. Here's what I'm going to write. Is there something that would be of concern to CanSoftCom? And if so, I'll edit it. I was like, the only thing I ask is that like this person is reachable in a timely manner, because I'm not going to like have a post vetted for 6 months. Yeah. Like, no, we're going to get someone. Okay. 3 months out. I'm like, I'm getting out in 3 months. Is there someone to talk to about this policy moving forward? I'm going out. I'm going to tell stories about my career. I'm going to be playing music. Oh yeah. So-and-so's going to be like a PAFO and another officer. Okay. 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'm like, I'm out in a week. No one's reached out. I literally messaged the night I was retiring. I'm like, I am retired tonight at midnight. No one's reached out about this. If you don't care, then that's fine. Yeah. Just don't pretend like you care later. No one. And the one guy was messaging was like, oh my God, no one's reached out yet. And I was like, no. So I like the next day posted, here's what I did. And then there's a bunch of just like spinning. I talked to some people who are pretty high up and just like, you won't imagine the amount of time in a day that goes into talking about like what you're posting. I'm like, if they care, then act like you care and come and have a conversation. Because I for months and months and months, I told them I will vet every single post before it goes onto the internet, and just like silence, and then behind the back conversations and emails unit wide and all this nonsense. So it's crazy. That happened after Sean Ryan show.
So Sean Ryan blew up. I started seeing, he said, hey, this is happening. They're censoring. They're going to pull this episode. It's going to get aggressive. I said, okay, well, I'll keep posting everything. You just let me know, tag me in anything that you want shared. I'll do my best to post it out. And it kind of came down that they were going to pull the episode. They pulled the episode, and then the picture of you with duct tape on your mouth came up. And I was like, oh, this is getting good, because they act as if they don't care, but they watch very closely. They do watch anybody who is doing anything on social media with any sort of platform. They watch, and it's the people that are watching that's the problem, because the people that are watching don't get what you're trying to do. They think that you're trying to do something malicious, or you're trying to leak classified information, like as if you care to do that anymore, like as if it's affecting operational security in any way, shape, or form. You're not in anymore. We're not a part of an active war. We're not like conventional forces, boots on the ground. We're insurgencies. You know, my favorite is we're not in Afghanistan anymore. ... Like it's a frustrating thing to watch with our current government, because they act as if we're over here doing something in some negative way to make the military look bad. We're releasing things that shouldn't be released. We're being disrespectful in some manner. And then you have the current sitting talking head Trudeau telling us that we have to inject our bodies with this thing while he goes off and goes on holidays where we can't see our families, but he's got private parties. Like it's such a double standard.
Oh yeah.
And when it came to you in particular, your stuff caught fire because of how bad Canada was handling it. But Sean ultimately edited the episode and put it back up.
Yeah.
And then the second one came out. What happened after the second episode came out?
Second one came out. I went to Mexico.
I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure I watched you drink margaritas.
Yeah. I thought it was a good time for a vacation.
Which makes total sense.
There was just some like word on the street that there might be people waiting to chat with me at certain places. And I was like, let's just go for a little break in Mexico. But yeah, they just kind of stayed on my case a little bit. The unit continues to investigate me. The last one, which is very interesting, is so the way the investigation works is a sergeant major will be put in charge of it. And you know they're qualified to investigate things. And the last one, they found nothing. Right. And they were told, and this is just from within that I've heard this, that they were told from really, really high up in the government to start another investigation and fucking find something. So it's hilarious. So that was after the second episode.
And this is July 13th. Hi.
I'm still here.
Hi, we're still doing this. Yeah, we're gonna keep doing this. The frustrating part with watching you go through this process is you're not doing anything wrong. You haven't broken protocol in any way, shape, or form, but yet your name is being dragged through the mud through the military. You're being misrepresented by the Canadian government in a way that frankly makes other JTF2 members look in a negative light, in my opinion, right? Because if they're going to come after somebody who is so decorated and so effective and then boot you out over a mandate, all that says to me is how uneducated our military currently is. Because in my mind, you would think that the people that have the most effective ability to take out individuals would want to keep you.
Depends on your compliance, I guess.
Okay.
The current, I think what we're seeing right now is they want to get rid of people that will question things for whatever reason in the future. Who knows how deep the rabbit hole is that you want to go down, but to me, it seems that way. It was operational security made no difference. Legitimate, like what were they calling them? Like you could put in there's a word for it, so that you could be exempt essentially.
Oh, the religious exemption?
There's a religious, medical, a human rights one, whatever it was. There was like 3 or 4 of them.
For the vaccine?
For the vaccine.
Okay.
And they're just denying them. Like I had a doctor that I sat with who gave me a medical exemption.
Right.
Because all I asked was like, okay, I've had a bunch of different concussions and brain injuries.
Right.
Like, has this ever been tested in conjunction with like the medical history that I have? And can you show me anything? I was like, no. I said, okay. So I got a medical exemption. I put it in and they're like, no, go talk to our doctors like on camp. And I was like, okay, that's strange. So all of them were denied. And there was mechanisms in place, in my opinion, that like when this first happened, I was like, oh, fuck, it's going to be easy. I'll just be like, no, we're going to figure it out and we'll keep going to work, right? We're here to do a job. And boy, was I surprised. Like it was just everyone that was not immediately compliant was threatened, bullied in some way, coerced. And it was either like, you're out or this, like, that's it. Your job, you can't pay your mortgage. You can't do this. You're not deploying, or we're sending you back from overseas. And it's just like this big crazy.
So the guys that were on deployments at the time of this, they were being recalled.
Well, they were told, if you don't take this, you have to go home, like right now.
And they were bringing vaccines over to these individuals?
Yeah.
Interesting. So they were willing to risk operational.
Oh yeah. Well,
And
they've risked operational effectiveness drastically. The amount of people that have gotten out or are on their way out that I know that are some of the most competent, lethal fucking soldiers Canada's ever known, the amount is insane. The knowledge and expertise that they have lost, people that are way better than me. And like, I don't get it. There's only like, it's just, the only explanation is just like they have to be weeding out people that are thinking for themselves. They're not 100% compliant.
So before I go down that rabbit hole, what do you think the intention of that is?
Well, I think it could be a whole bunch of things. It depends on what the plan is down the road, how many more of these they're going to try and implement. And the people that stand their ground are an annoyance. Like, do you know what I mean? If there's a whole unit full of me, it's a big pain in the ass for someone trying to mandate something. So I think it just makes the future jobs, mandates, like anything that comes a lot easier if all the people that said no, or this is where I draw a line, are just no longer around.
It's interesting because then, in my opinion, wouldn't that just weaken our national security?
Yeah, but I don't know if we care about national security being weakened. And by that, I mean the government.
Okay. Do you think that it's already been weakened enough that it's past fixing due to COVID?
I think if we don't take a drastic course correction, then that like fixing horizon is getting further and further and further away from us for sure.
What does a drastic course correction look like in your opinion?
A 180 from the direction we're going right now. Like, look at just everywhere. And these, like, you can't even get a real number because they're holding on to people just so they can, like, you're not releasing right now so that you're still a CAF number. And people that are all, like, they need to be out, medically should be out. They're dragging their heels on everything because the numbers are down incredibly. It's insane.
Yeah, the retention rate. I've talked to a couple CEO friends of mine and they're like, we can't keep people to save our lives.
It's mind-blowing. But yeah, if that's what they want, that's what they're getting.
Fair enough. Do you think that there is more? I mean, want to tinfoil hat it for a second with me?
Let's do it.
All right. I like tinfoil hats. You guys like tinfoil hats. We all like tinfoil hats. What do you think the real play here is? What do you think that the intention of weakening the Canadian military so significantly is?
Well,
yay, tinfoil hat time!
Let's just say there was an intention to have a different force take control of everything that wasn't the Canadian forces or other country governments and more of a global system. Then it's a lot easier to say, we're going to step in here if your force is completely incapable of doing anything.
Do you think that as the military sits right now, it would be capable of protecting itself?
No. No. Hell no. The people that are going to protect anything in Canada are probably most of the people that got out of the military. And like, yeah, that's about it. And like, I don't know, ranchers and farmers and hunters.
Yeah, which we're running out of guns.
Bushmen.
Yeah, we're running out of the guns. We're running out of those situations anyway. So that's a whole situation on its own. Yeah, I don't see it being the people with the purple hair with the berets on.
Yeah, probably not. Would be my guess.
Have you seen a lot of the new standards?
No. Although I will say I was never a fan of the standards in the first place. My hair looked a lot like this my entire career.
Yeah, but you're JTF too. It's different.
That's true. That's right.
It's a different thing. Listen, like for the people that are watching, it's different.
I agree with the military should have standards. Just there's a whole bunch of reasons, and I don't know. I just keep saying they're going to get what they asked for, and well, they're getting what they asked for. The unit's getting the unit that it asked for. The government's getting the military that it asked for. Why they're asking for it, like we said.
Oh, it could just be the 2013 payouts that have happened from Beijing on a regular ongoing basis with the current administration, I would think.
Could be.
Well, that's not me saying it. That's CSIS. So
Money talks.
money does talk, especially when it's coming from them. And talk to me, why, like, what do you think the plan is here? Because they're going around the world. They're doing this effectively. And they are, it seems like, very actively pinpointing nations to go after. And not only that, we're finding what they consider espionage spies in our current government, but no one is talking about it.
Yeah.
What do you think the plan is here?
I think it depends on whose plan you're talking about, because I think there's other countries doing a bunch of shit all over the planet, including here. And that's always a play and a power move. It just, they found a different, more effective way of doing it. And it's buying people and buying resources, buying land, and just buying property. Like, and when you do that, you now have a say in everything. Buy companies. You have a say what this company has to say or not. If it doesn't matter if the company agrees with your morals or your future projections. If you own the company does whatever the fuck you want. It doesn't matter how long they've been around, what kind of fan base they have. If it's Bud Light, like if the people who started that company, let's say, are not running it anymore, you don't have a say. The investors have a say. And depending on where the money comes from, you earn a bigger and bigger say. So I think it's a way of infiltrating countries all over the place, just with a little bit different plan. They're just like, we can buy everything. We can buy people. We can buy politicians. We can buy companies. We can buy property. We can buy land and resources. In some places, it's just pitching in to say like, hey, what if we build some roads here to get us to these resources? You're going to have beautiful roads and schools, and it's a win-win-win. And then you just gather and gather and gather resources, essentially, whether it's people or actual resources.
How do you see, or do you see, and I'm not trying to be facetious here, but do you see Canada coming out of this?
I don't know. It's something that I don't have much control over.
Of course, so none of us do.
I don't really worry about it that much. I like to look at things and try to dissect what my opinion is, hopefully without too much influence from like what I'm already influenced by. And then look at my daily life and say, okay, how does it affect it? Can I change anything? Can I have these conversations and hopefully some people hear and they're like, oh, well, that's a little bit weird. Maybe I should look at this. Can I design my life in a way that I can be at peace and happy every day and not worried that the sky is falling, even if the fucking sky is falling, if I can't do anything about it?
Right.
So do we get out of it? I don't know. All I know is that regardless of what happens, I'm going to try my hardest to live my best life for myself and my family, and I will defend it viciously.
Well, we don't need to dive further into that. I feel like the word viciously is accurate, but it's true. You surround yourself with a very tight-knit group of people, and you are very careful into who you allow into that circle. And I've seen that personally. I was very fortunate to get to hang out with you on your 40th, and I got to meet the clan that is your tight-knit group and your brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And he's going to love that we're talking about him right now.
Yeah.
I think it's just his straight face or the fact that he never actually smiles, or that his opinion I didn't know could be even more intense than mine.
Oh, yeah. Now you know.
Now I know. I really learned. But I think you do a really good job of that. The balance is there. Your wife is absolutely incredible, and she does a lot to seem like keep you really calm and keep everything really, really relaxed. And I can only imagine being under an investigation from the Canadian government, how much anxiety that could bring on to anybody else. I know for me, I wouldn't have handled it near as good as you have. Because I remember calling you and be like, you good, bro? And you were literally at a bar in Mexico and you're like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I'm great. But I was concerned for you though.
Well, again, it goes like it doesn't always happen, but I try to focus on what I can control. And I can control what I'm saying, how I'm talking about it. I can attempt to control the impact I let it have in my life. You know, am I anxious about something? Is someone going to knock on my door? Are they going to come? I'm just like, if they come,
it's going to happen. If it's going to happen,
let them come. Yeah. And we'll just, I'm happy with all the different lines I've drawn for myself in the sand. I'm happy with what I've stood for, decisions I've made, and where I'm at now. I play fucking country music and I love it. And I get to spend a lot of time with my family. So I'm like, who's really winning?
Well, honestly, that's the truth though, because the more they talk about you, they're just raising you up.
Oh yeah. And then all these like newspaper articles and fucking things. I'm like, thank you. I was like, maybe in a very secretive way, they do want me to succeed. And they're just like putting all this stuff out there. I'm just like, maybe you're a lot more clever than I'm giving you credit for. Probably not. But it like the more, even if it's bullshit, like articles where people like, they'll never ask me for my opinion. Do you know what I mean? Like, like the Ottawa Citizen or whatever, they just make up this story and then like, it still doesn't matter. It's still it's publicity. People come to me like, oh my God, you're in the newspaper. And like, some of them were great. They would ask for like my opinion or what was behind certain stories and stuff. But even then after it's written, I'm like, I don't give a shit. I really don't care. Say whatever the fuck you want.
Right.
Take a 10-second clip of this and say something and call me a racist. Like, I don't give a shit.
It's going to happen.
Try to live as well as I can. And if I slip or tumble, come back to like what I believe in, what's important to me, and then take the rest of it.
I didn't tell you that's what I was doing. I'm going to clip this up and sell it.
Perfect.
You didn't know that? I thought we discussed that. We're going to make money off of that together. But your music is a really big part of your life. And it's been really interesting. I've been lucky enough to listen to some of the new stuff that's coming out. And I got really lucky. I was in Texas and I was driving umpteen amounts of kilometers or miles, whatever you Americans.
I only sent it to you because you were in Texas.
I know. I was in Texas.
Here's where you need to listen to
God, it felt good though. It was a great song. So, but for somebody who like you said, you only played a couple chords. You didn't really lean into music much in your life. And so how old were you when you really started to dive in?
2018, whatever that was. I'm 40 now.
Yeah. So fairly late in your life.
35 or whatever it would have been.
So talk to me about the idea that you're going to really dive into this. You're going to start writing. You're going to start making music. You're making an album. You made an album. It's going to be coming out. You've got new songs coming out. So talk to me about that process and why you decided to go down that path. Obviously, it's therapeutic for you, but really give me like an overview.
I've always loved music. I listen to music forever, every day, like every place that there is space. If I'm not talking or listening to a podcast, like I'm listening to music. And it's always been such a good, like, enhances life everywhere. Like a good time is better with music. Mm-hmm. A sad time is better with music, and everything in between. I think it really connects. It's one of those things that connect. Like when you go to a concert and like, you know, everyone there's connected. They're like singing along all the same words, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 people. Like that's crazy. You're all connected in this energy, and music, like it's crazy. It's just amazing to see how it does that. And then, like you're saying, the therapeutic side, like I write a song and I'm like, it's another way of processing and getting things out. And it's also another thing that like, there's no end to learning it. Like I'm never going to have like, finally I've learned all the guitar or like, I'm finally the best singer in the whole world. You know, like it's stuff you can just, every single day can practice. And for someone who's had a bunch of concussions, that's a good thing to have, something new that like pushes me out of my comfort zone. And then I can get into like a flow state. And then it's like, that's really hard. I got to dial it back a bit. And then think like, it's just, it checks a lot of boxes for me.
So before we go a little more into that, I want a side tangent, as you know I do, because we both have TBIs, and that's why you and I are on the same page. You also got you have 4 already, so you got a 5th and a 6th today. So perfect, we'll claim those.
That's right.
And these ceilings are great, guys. I really wish I'm going to take a video and attach it to this. Talk to me about, because you played hockey before, did you ever notice any symptoms that you were struggling because of those concussions prior to the military?
No, I didn't notice any. Mind you, I was, 20 years old also, so maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
I was just going to say that too.
There's definitely been some times where I've been in a fight and like it's like a little hazy later.
Oh, okay.
Or like a hard hit, and I'm like, your lights out, and then you're on the bench, and then you're like, oh my God. But no, I didn't really notice like in my life the way I noticed it after a career in special operations. That's for sure.
Yeah, because we know now when the recoil off of these weapons. So Canada put out a lovely document that shows the recoil concussive blast off of every single weapon, and then they continue to still tell people it's not service related after they prove it themselves. And because of the amount of weapons you fired and the caliber of weapons you fired and been exposed to, do you see a cognitive decline now? Oh yeah,
huge. Like from especially the 50 cal sniper rifle, explosive breaching entries, like those, the overpressure and stuff from all of the training and operation, like explosive breaches that we did. And then para was a big one. Like when you're full equipment, helmet that has NVGs on it, oxygen and tank, like when you open from free fall, it's like a mini car wreck, like every time. It's just like, oh, and I remember like, oh, to shake it off a second. And then later, you know, I was like dizzy, and those symptoms just came on faster and easier every time we would do something like that. Which is just another reason that sometimes I question the medical experts in the government. And they're like, nah, shoot away, 50 cal, give her. And I'm like, yeah, I don't feel right. No, you're fine.
Your face as you say it, though.
Yeah, like,
yeah, you're fine.
It's like, forgive me for having questions
How
to
dare
our
you
doctors
not feel
after
well?
that. What was the original question? See, TBI.
I almost spit that at you. That literally took everything. Oh, maybe
you can't let me rant that long and not remind me what the question was.
No, I need to let you rant that long because a lot of people tell me I don't let my people talk enough.
Oh, okay.
So I'm letting you rant. No, the kind of thing was like, do you notice this? Like, because
yes, I do. I sometimes notice it.
This is why this had to be in person.
Yeah. That was not staged.
Oh, you're distracting. Oh my God. Okay. So we notice it. We can see that.
Yeah.
When did you start to really see a significant impact? Because you were in for so long. You did a couple years with the PPCLI, but did you start to notice after the jumps started going?
No, I noticed it like I would notice effects from breaching, from jumping, from the rifles. But they would seem to go away. And then just like, I was also surrounded by guys doing all the same things. So like, as we're collectively getting dumber, you know, or like one of the biggest signs for me was actually, I was in sniper troop, and it's like the most aggressive people in JTF2. But I was like, I was getting a shorter temper, and I was getting angrier, easier for me.
Right.
And I was like, oh, well, it's normal. Like, look at all these fucking guys. Like, they're all just soup. They're like my brother-in-law.
Yeah, your brother-in-law is my favorite.
So I'm like, I would notice it like out in the real world where I'm like, I'm getting angrier, and I didn't really know why. And that was one of the things that cued me first, where I was like, well, this is weird. And then memory things, like there was just significant points in my life where I'm like, I don't actually remember any of this anymore. Mm-hmm. And like trying to find the words to say when you're in a conversation, especially after like a day at the range or some jumping or breaching. And I was like, I've got to start looking at this. And so that was probably, like 2017, 2018, no, even before that, 2015. Because like at 2017 is when we were shooting a lot of 50 in Iraq, where we broke that record. And like we shot a lot of rounds in that tour. And like we'd sit in the room and be like, is everyone else like brain dead right now? I was like, yeah. So I started taking it more seriously after that, where I'm like, I need to start limiting these exposures to these types of things. Thankfully, I think there's like one time away from exposure, I think is super beneficial. Mm-hmm. Not getting punched in the face or shooting these large caliber rifles anymore. And then, you know, I think music helps a lot with it. So the time I'm getting away from it, I think the severity of the symptoms are starting to fade a little bit.
Yeah, I can tell.
Except for
I can sure tell.
The odd time.
That's how that works.
You should have saw me.
That's how that works, right?
You saw me 5 years ago.
Really? You were worse.
Oh yeah. You're getting like Optimum Dallas right now.
Wow.
I just had fucking ketones.
Yeah, well, that's why you're getting Optimum Dallas. It's not from anything but these. See, guys, they work. So you notice it got worse. What did you start doing? Was it just music, or did you start doing any other types of cognitive rebuilding?
Yeah, so they were kind of trying a bunch of different things at work, and I went to some brain doctors that did scans and tests and puzzles and all kinds of shit. I think the biggest step that I took was just getting away from constantly having my bell rung. Right. Like started skipping sparring days in the fight room. I didn't train on the 50 cal other than like checking zero before we went overseas kind of thing. Like there was no unnecessary rounds being fired, let's say. More cognizant of explosive breaches and like, maybe let's be a little further away from this one.
Back up.
And even just like minimizing like the full equipment pair stuff would be like, you get enough jumps to be kind of current and good to go. Like, yeah, I'm not doing any more. So I think time away from impact is what has been the biggest factor. I kind of take every supplement under the sun also, which I think some of it might help, some of it doesn't. There's days where I'm like, oh yeah, I feel good. I'm dialed in, focused. And I think just constantly continuing to learn something that works your brain.
Yeah, learning, it seems to be one of those things. Anytime I talk to a doctor that's working with the brain, it's like that ability to, if you can continue to learn, whether it's a language, you're reading, you're writing, something that you're using that cognitive muscle and that frontal lobe, and you're really working that muscle. Reading such a big one, because a lot of times people with TBIs, they have a hard time focusing on a line.
Oh yeah.
So if you put a paragraph, and then it's my favorite. So if you give someone a paragraph and you let them read it, when they finish, then ask them questions about the paragraph. It tells you a lot about that person's brain.
Yeah. Totally. I'm just picturing reading a book and like that page took me way too long. I read it like 7 times.
Yeah. Didn't remember any of it either.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's why audiobooks work for people like you and I. The change and the shift and getting out of the military, though, that had to have an effect on, let's just say, not just your surroundings, because, you know, you still have family that were in, so you were still around similar type of guys, but how was that transitioning into the civilian world a little bit for you? Meaning like being home a little bit more, being around more civilians, not in that kind of environment as much.
Yeah. I don't think I'm around much more civilians necessarily. Maybe in music, I guess. But I was already like, I was ready to go. Like the last couple of years, there's so much bullshit, and I was playing a lot of gigs at this point. Like I was playing music all the time. I was playing 3, 4, 5 bar shows in a week. And I was like, this is what I'm doing next anyway. So I was almost like going this way and like just cut that cord.
Right.
So I found the transition out to be like almost like a breath of fresh air, where I'm like, oh, I can book a gig over here. I don't need a fucking leave pass to go to it. You know what I mean? So I was itching to go. So because I had that, you know, I knew where all of my focus and passion was going to go. There wasn't a gap of like, wow, what do I do now? Like it was so busy now, I'm not doing anything. I essentially stayed just as busy, but just a new
different
focus. Yeah. So, and I still, all my good friends are still my good friends from the unit. Like, they're not the ones investigating me. They're not the ones like dragging my name around. So it's like, I still have my, 90% of my friend circle, and it's just, I don't have to go to work anymore in that same base.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. The hill's an interesting spot. That's for damn sure. I know I used to watch you guys coming in and out of the Connaught Range when they're like, they don't train there. Okay. I would just see like the griffins come in, like the fast ropes drop down, and you're sitting on like the hovercraft watching people fish. You're not supposed to fish here, and you guys are just fast roping down. What's happening right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. That tracks.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, with civilians, that's a great spot for you guys to train.
Yeah.
We had an air balloon actually land there one time during a hot range.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good time. It went off course. I just remember we were at the range and we were doing because that's where they retrained me.
That was us, our air balloon?
No, it wasn't you.
Oh, okay.
But like you guys weren't far off. Like, but then there was like an air balloon that came in, like it's like a hot air balloon, like with civilians in it, came off course, like hot range. Air balloon came. It was
sounds like a fun day on the range.
I mean, I don't get to shoot there. I just had to call the range.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I wasn't working. I was retraining. That's when I was broken. Remember?
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good time. that's the only time I got exposure to you guys. Most of the time it was other countries. It wasn't, I never actually saw JTF2 ever.
Good camouflage.
Oh my God, you're fucking horrible. Okay. Talk to me more about your family unit and how you handle having the amount of children you have and making time for the, you know, the new baby that's coming and all of your great things, because you seem to have a handle on it in a really, really great way. And I wish more, I don't say ex-special operators, but I wish more military members would learn how to balance the way that you do, because you are, as calm as you are right now, knowing you outside of here, you are like this all the time.
Most of the time, yeah.
From what I can see, you're pretty chill. So how do you manage that?
Well,
Besides the meditation.
The family stuff is, it's my priority. It's like the number one most important thing to me is I call my familia, but my family and my friends. Like with everything else, I think about like, no matter how successful you get in anything, any business endeavor, music, like none of it would fucking matter, or I wouldn't give a shit about it if I didn't have my family and friends there with me anyway. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just like, and I work really hard at music because I think it's going to offer my family a pretty interesting life. And like already there's just, we're getting to do things together that normally you wouldn't. But it's just like, it's my number one priority. And I think that makes it easy to fit everything else. It doesn't make it easy to fit everything else in, but it makes it easy to be like, okay, I'm going to go do this. As I list the priorities, how does it affect this? How does it affect that? So like, I don't go, like I didn't want to leave one job where I was gone all the time for another one. And music can be that for sure.
Very easily.
But now it's like, if I'm going on a trip somewhere and it's extended, then I just have my family come. Mm-hmm. Where I don't think it's not the norm. Like I was in Nashville writing, I was there for like 10 days. So I went down for a few days first, and then my family came for the rest of it. Yeah. And I'm just going to continue to do that. That's how I'm going to build this, career, I guess, whatever you want to call it, business, career, passion, pastime, around that being my priority. For staying calm, I don't know. I think the life to this point there's been so many good lessons through things like war or just life. I'm fucking 40 years old. I've made a ton of mistakes, learned a lot of lessons, and I just realized that there's so much shit that doesn't matter as much as we let our brain trick us that it does. You know, like as simple as anything that eats up eats up the time in your brain thinking about stuff. Like, we have a bad habit, I think, as humans to think about the worst case scenario on something, like a meeting or an event. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And we think, like, oh my God, what if this is the thing? Instead of like, why don't we think the best case scenario? Like, that person, they didn't hear me call them a motherfucker, so they're not going to worry about it. Or the conversation from my friend, like, call me now, is not because what did I do? Yeah. It's like, maybe they need help. There's a bunch of reframing that, like, why do we always think negative? And I get it in a survival sense. Like, Sarah lying down by the water. But there's most of the time, if you look back on it, it's not. And Sarah and I had this conversation a lot. It was like, seemed to be worrying about something. And like, oh, that actually turned out to be no big deal. We're like, was it worth it? Was it worth the worry leading up to that when the outcome was like no big deal? Just reframing these things. I don't know. I think you worry enough. Yeah. If you think about, if you can go back and reflect and be like, okay, then statistically speaking, in my own life, I did not need to worry that much. Therefore, moving forward, I'm just going to chill the fuck out.
Yeah. Well, you learn these lessons, but a lot of people don't seem to, they go through these moments, they go through these points of their lives, but they don't seem to take the lessons.
Well, I think that's the reflection part. So you said outside of meditation, but it involves meditation. So like, meditating, just really coming back to being present, and then things, just taking that time to, whether it's journaling or even just thinking about it. Like, okay, for the whole week, I was so worried about X. The outcome was what? You're like, I didn't need to worry about it. Right. And even if it was the worst possible fucking outcome, the worrying made no difference anyway. Right. Except for you wasted a week of your life. Right. So I don't know. It's like you hit yourself over the head enough times with that, and I'll be like, okay, I think I'm pretty good to just chill out in most situations.
But the worry for you, because you're able to be so calm and all of those things, it seems to trickle down really well to everyone around you. It's like the energy that you have that you're putting out. Because I talk about that a lot with people, and it's hard for people to understand what I'm trying to say. But because I always say, like, when you walk in the room, your energy is going to walk in before you, and that's where like the woo woo comes in, and then people are like, well, energy's walking in before you. I'm like, but your energy, we know it's like, it's a couple feet off of you all of the time, and like how you're projecting, and people feel that. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I definitely ping a lot for people. Ping like I'm a lot. Like I'm intense. Like I'm really, really intense for people. And it's a hard thing to practice, because if you can come in with a calmer energy, those around you kind of feel this like sense of, that sense of peace.
Yeah, for sure. And like I think like I noticed it with other people. Like when someone's just calm, you're like, oh, that's so much. Like I feel it from other people. So for sure, it's felt like in our family, like in our house, we try and just like make it a calm space, you know? Like
considering the amount of espresso you drink, I'm shocked.
That's right.
Drink all the espresso.
That was the best COVID investment ever. Fucking espresso machine. I'm like, oh, I can't come to your coffee shop? Well, I don't care.
It's totally fine. I just remember FaceTiming you the first time, and I think you had 2 or 3 in the like 40-minute phone call.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
It blew my mind there a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay.
Is that a lot?
I mean, I think...
But you're way smaller than me too. So like 3 espressos for me is like 1 for you.
Sure. We'll go with your rationalization on this. But I want to talk to you. I want to pivot a bit, because a lot of these tools that you're talking about, a lot of these things, and I know it sounds repetitive, but you would be shocked how much it needs to be drilled into people's heads. And the reason I'm asking you, in all these different settings, in all of these different points in your life, the same tool seems to reemerge, and it seems to be the thing that has worked all the way through everything.
Totally. It's being present. It's like all of these efforts are to come back, because you're not, if I'm like, okay, touch this table, and you're like, okay, what does it feel like? It's a little bit cool. It's a different, in that brief moment where you're exactly present in what you're feeling, you're not stressed. Right. Even if you're worried all day long, for that split second, you're not. If you can just make that time a little bit more each day, where you're in the exact moment that you're in, the other shit just won't be there. There's no space for it. Now, it takes practice, and I'm not enlightened. I don't do it all the time.
Yes.
But like the more you do it, just the outside world, it feels less chaotic.
Just fades.
And so it has been through, different times in war or training or stressful things, and then into life now. I will say that when I started singing at open mics, I was fucking scared shitless.
Did you sing before? Like, did you sing at home? Like when you were younger, was that like a thing?
I'd like to sing in the car and stuff like that, along to the radio a lot. But no, I wasn't like, see like videos, like Ed Sheeran singing when he's 10 or whatever.
Right.
No. It was a lot of car karaoke.
Did you think you sounded good? And was country? Okay, I got a lot of questions. Did you think that you sounded good?
I thought that I could sing along to the radio. When I would sing without it, I'd be like, I prefer singing along to the radio. Sounds so much better when the other artist is singing.
No, it's interesting, because I hear that. Like I hear that from a lot of people. Like they start this way and then they slowly turn it down. They start to hear themselves a little bit, and they build that confidence around their tone. Yeah,
and what it's like with anything, it just takes practice and practice. Right. Every single person that has a voice can become a better singer. Now, can everyone sing like whoever your favorite singer is? Maybe not, but everyone can become a better singer than they are.
Why country?
Because it's the best, and it's the only music there is, I think.
Oh.
Just kidding.
That was a very intense answer.
I actually like a lot of genres.
I was just going to say.
But country music is the best.
Okay.
I didn't see a single country singer on the Epstein flight logs.
You're opening doors here. And if you think that I'm not going to walk through them.
But I liked country long before that. It's just, to me, where I grew up, we had a single radio station for a long time.
Okay.
That was a country station. My parents listened to a lot of like rock, Southern rock. My dad listened to like CCR, and then like Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings and Merle Haggard. So like the older country stuff would be in all the van trips to the mountains. So it's just always held a nice, dear place in my heart. Okay. And it's We're back with Why Country Music is the Best.
Another solo podcast with Dallas Alexander. Big man in the tiny chair. I think I'm going to name this episode The Lego House or something.
Okay.
Where it's like putting you in the Lego house.
It is like everything in this room is miniature.
It really is. It really is. I mean, everything feels tiny, but I mean, they're tiny people. Shut up. Continue. Country music is the best.
Country music's the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just went with that one. Do you think it had anything to do with your brother?
Well, he played more rock and would record everything from rock to rap with like local artists. So I think it has a lot to do with home, like family and upbringing, stuff like that. But even that being said, like some of the songs I write, if I just like took out a song, played it for someone, and maybe like didn't have the fiddle in the track, it'd be like, what genre is that? Like,
Right.
I don't know. It's kind of rock, maybe alternative. It could be country. I'm a huge country fan, and my songwriting is inspired most by it. But like, I don't know. I can kind of write whatever I want, and sometimes it comes out as like, singer-songwriter folk stuff or rock, somewhere in the realm of music that has a guitar. There's not a lot of like, I don't know, crazy beats that I'm rapping to.
Yeah.
It just doesn't come out that way. But there's stuff that like on the upcoming album is definitely more rock or southern rock with a fiddle than country for sure.
It's interesting to see the style shift because I feel like listening to some of your music, I'm like, someone could really twist that into like a really good rock, or like I was telling the Marine rapper buddy of mine about you a while back, and I was like, do you know this guy? And he's like, who's this guy? And I was like, I sent him a bunch of your stuff, and I was like, you need to listen to this, because I'm like, the collaborative effort that could be so cool with you and Topher and him would just be so fascinating to me, because they collab really well with different types of genres. Yeah. Are you doing something?
Well, he messaged me about one when I was in Nashville, and I like spent most of the day walking around trying to sing like this little chorus thing, and I was like,
just didn't work.
I'm like, I won't deliver this best, and I was like grateful, and hopefully we can do something in the future, but like I want to make sure I can do it properly. Yeah, I could see that. You alluded to something at the beginning that I want to touch on before we kind of start wrapping up, which was psychedelics, because we know now how effective psychedelics can be, not only for PTSD, but for also traumatic brain injury and the regrowth in the neurons, especially psilocybin, things like ayahuasca. You said you did massive amounts of mushrooms. Yeah. What do you consider massive amounts for your body size? Well, it's enough that it really brought me on a trip. So I think the first time I did it was about 5 grams.
Okay.
Of the strain, I don't remember.
Okay.
But it was enough to show me a lot that I didn't see. That was the biggest piece, actually. So between like songwriting being therapeutic and the biggest thing, like I said, the hardest challenge essentially of my life was like getting or coming to peace with like my brother dying. Yeah. And I was having a really hard time. Music was helping. But I was still drinking like Hank Williams. So it would get feelings out, but then there was no peace coming from it. And it was hard to explain, but when the first time I took mushrooms was like, I'd been reading about like the benefits and stuff, and a lot of podcasters and stuff I followed were talking about it. I didn't want to read too much about it, where it would like, I didn't know if it would like skew my
muddle your
trip.
experience. Yeah.
So, and I also didn't want to do it with anyone present, because I didn't know if it would like turn me into something sort of violent. Like
you were fearful of that.
Yeah. Like if I wake up and now like the person that was supposed to be supervising me is dead, and I'm like, oh shit, So I was like,
shit, we got to call some friends.
So I was like, I'm just going to do it by myself, and then whatever happens.
Right.
So I just kind of told Sarah to like leave the house for the day.
You need to go away now.
In the living room, I took 5 grams and just like, I tried to get everything like in a meditative state, and just, it took over.
Do you want to walk me through what that was like?
Yeah, sure. So I'd never really I accidentally had mushrooms like 15 years before in a brownie at Christmas. And I was like, I just remember having crazy dreams, and I was like in and out of dreams. So this was like the first real experience with psychedelics, and it was crazy the trip that it took me on. It was like highs and lows. It was like the scaredest I'd ever been, the saddest I'd ever been, the most like euphoric. And it was just, it kept like one phase would go to the next and it would just like show something different or bring a different lesson. Like I remember when I took it, I can't remember how long it took to kick in, but I was like laying on the living room floor and the ceiling was like, it was insane. It was like, it went to heaven. Like it just opened up my living room ceiling.
Oh, wow.
I remember all of it. I've never seen the ceiling the same way, which I wish I could. But then I'd like turn into the pillows on and then it was completely dark. And then I just felt like so much sorrow and I couldn't really explain any other reason other than, and this could be from my Indigenous blood, but it was just like for Earth. I don't know, Mother Earth. Like sounds like a Green Party endorsement, but I'm like, it was just like so much sorrow for kind of, I don't know what. And just, I fucking cried so much. It was like a river of tears coming out of me. And from that, I went to like the darkest, scariest place I'd ever been. I was like, this has got to be hell. And this is the part where like, I felt my brother there. And it was like this thing I'd been challenged with the most ever in my whole life was instantly gone. He was just like, what the fuck? Like, why are you having such a hard time with this? I've gone nowhere. I'm no further away than like the way it came across is like the thickness of your eyelids. Like you close your eyes, it's like you're still in the same place. I'm still right there everywhere. Like, and that one little slice of process, like it was like that. And all the things that I'd been struggling with in that particular space of my life were gone. From that point, literally forward. It was crazy. And then I had this octopus like come up my arm,
obviously
across my body. And I felt like this warm sensation of like, you're out of this hell. And this octopus was like, it was Gigi. It was my daughter. And it was like this warm hug. And I turned over and I was like, oh my God. And then back to the ceiling. And it was like all the way to heaven. And it was just through these lessons for 6 or 8 hours of things I didn't have perspective on. And at one point I saw like all of the males, my father, grandfather, and like all the way up, I don't know, to heaven, to the sky, like this lineage. And it was like, all of these people are like all part of me. It was interesting to have that perspective. Like, oh, fuck, I came from a line of like so many. And then every single mother, my mom, her mom, all the mothers in my life, and just so much respect for like both sides making me be here on Earth, I guess. And the day just went like that for 6 or 8 hours. And then I started like, when it was tapering down, like the whole entire time, there's like this drum beat, like that I just feel in my fucking body, just like almost like a power drum. Yeah. Really.
Yeah.
I remember when I was like, he was all fading, or like the psychedelic parts, and I was just laying in the backyard and looking at the clouds, and I was just like hitting the deck with his beat. Like, what the fuck? But there was parts where like, if Sarah would have seen me, she would like probably would have thought I was dying. Like just like the amount of intensity and like tears coming, or just like I couldn't even move because it was like so intense and euphoric at times. Like she would have I'm sure she would have called the ambulance.
Right.
But then when it was all said and done, I'm like, wow.
Okay then, that was a lot.
I cannot believe I remembered all of that. And it was like, to this day, the most profound day of my life. I've done it 2 more times since then, and both have been almost as profound, just different lessons. But that one I was like, okay, everybody needs to do this.
Have you ever sat in a structured ceremony with an integration?
No, I think I would be ready to do it now. The first time was my concern that I would like get violent.
You would become.
I don't know. I didn't know what would happen. And the second and third time were just like, oh, it's convenient that I can do it by myself. I don't need to organize anything. I'm just like go to the cottage.
Yeah.
Like battle with myself. But I would do it. Yeah, I would do it. I think I'm going to do some version of whether it's ayahuasca or psilocybin, probably every year for the rest of my life, I would say. After doing it and seeing what you can process, and then, you know, you get out of it and you're processing, and then life just continues to pile on as it does. And I think it's like a bit of a cleansing. So I will do it forever, probably.
I mean, I'm glad to hear you had such a positive experience, especially on your own for the first time. You know, it's always something I'm very careful when I speak about, because I don't recommend anybody does it on their own.
I'm not a doctor.
He's not a doctor. He's not a... Do you guys know he's not a doctor? Okay, I just want to make sure you knew he wasn't a doctor. This is not a medical show. No, it's important. I always preface it like, I don't recommend ever doing that on your own. I totally understand why you did. There's a lot of operators I know, that's one of their biggest fears is becoming violent.
Yeah.
And that switch flipping.
Totally.
I've definitely heard of stories of that happening in situations.
Oh, really? Because I feel like now,
not psilocybin, but other.
Like, I feel like I would have no ability to do that. After having taken it, I was like, I feel like there would be no way I could get violent.
Yeah, I think like the first time for people though, it's always like that first initial, like, I don't know, I got to let go fully. What does it mean to let go? What happens when I let go? Yeah. What is my body going to do? What's the medicine going to do? It's this whole kind of dance.
Totally.
And, you know, when you've got somebody your size, you know, if you're working with a facilitator that might be small, like that could be, I can understand where the fear and not wanting to harm somebody else comes from. Yeah. I want to ask you something personal. Like more personal than this.
Okay, so we haven't.
No, this isn't. Okay. No, and you can feel free to not go here. When it comes to taking life, and I know you've had your tools and your coping mechanisms, though, is there anything that you regret or that you wish you would have changed or done differently in any of these scenarios where you were pulling triggers?
There's times I wish I would have pushed harder to get to different positions to kill more people. Okay. I think after seeing what it was we were doing, like there's a bunch of things that I disagree with that the government does.
No shit.
So it's funny because people will be like, well, you worked for the government. You're doing their agenda, all these different things. And I always say that no. And if you saw me, like I wasn't even a good soldier. It was just like, I just wanted the logistical hookup from Canada to get me in front of these people.
Yeah. So you could legally do it without prison time.
And training and all these things. And like I didn't have a plane to fly to Iraq. I didn't have endless amounts of 50 cal ammo and like a stack of fucking planes to bomb these guys. So I think there could have been places I could have pushed harder to get into more operational spaces. And we pushed hard, but like there was always a resistance. Because once you're in country and Canada can say, especially this government, we have troops there, we're pitching in. On the ground, it's a battle all the time to get out. You're just like, no, we don't want you to go there. You can't go do that. So we're putting up all of these different course of actions to go out the door and do stuff. And I think there was a few times anywhere, I would have gone a little more in the gray zone towards the black spectrum in a few scenarios. That's probably not the direction that question was supposed to go. But
no, I want your honest opinion, and I think you're doing just that.
I regret. No, I'm very happy with all of the things that we have done. My team or myself.
I think that's a good answer.
I can only kind of be responsible for my own actions and all these things, but yeah, I think it was valuable. I wish it wasn't required. I wish that job wasn't required. But it fucking is. So in the meantime, I always like to say, like, if you have all the solutions and we can just have peace, great. In the meantime, there's some people that need to be killed.
Fuck, that's the best ever. I agree. I don't think I need to go any further.
Okay.
I think that's fucking brilliant. I've been really looking forward to doing this with you. I think
yeah, me too.
A lot of times I get to sit down, and I've said this before, I get to sit on the shoulders of people like you. And the only reason I get to do it is because of people like you, because people give me their time, and you give me your time, but you're a very vulnerable individual, and you're willing to share space. And by share space, I mean, you're willing to share the good parts and the bad parts and the deep parts that people don't want to touch, or even you can see I can feel when someone's like, I don't want to go there, man. Yeah. Can we not poke the bear? And I'm like, poke the bear. Now I'm going to poke the bear. Now I'm going to kick the bear. Tell me about the bear. But I appreciate you. And I'm not going to sit here and say, thank you for your service, Dallas Alexander, because that's
good.
But I appreciate the human being that you are. And
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
Likewise.
the time that you put into the job that you did, and how valuable you have been for this country, whether or not this country wants to acknowledge it, whether they want to admit it, whether they want to support it. It's not really about this government. It's about the people in this country that do, whether you see it or not, they do appreciate you. They do love what you do. And I think it's a really beautiful ending to see you transition into the space that you are transitioning into, because I know just as much as you do, music heals, music connects, music is there in the worst parts of our lives, the most beautiful parts of our lives. And you're really becoming a soundtrack to people's lives and their journeys. So I appreciate you for doing that and putting your heart out there, because some of your music, when you really listen to the lyrics, if you pay attention to the lyrics, you really understand what you're listening to.
Yeah, some of it for sure.
Yeah, it's great, man. So thanks for coming all the way up here and making the time.
My pleasure. I appreciate all those words.
Yeah, man. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you would like to?
No, I'm just glad that you're supporting my transition.
I'm so glad that you're transitioning. Have you guys heard that? Dallas Alexander is officially transitioning. Is there any new names I need to be calling you by?
No, I just need to think I'm a country singer, and then I'm a country singer.
That's it.
That's how transition works, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. We need to think it. I need to acknowledge it. I need to affirm it. I am affirming, Dallas Alexander, that you are a country singer. And all that I ask is that when you win that Grammy and when you step up on that stage and you're on the Grand Ole Opry, that bracelet sticks on your wrist. That's all I ask of you. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
You too.
Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
We did it.
All right. Get that on film.
Yeah.
Oh, good. It didn't stop.
Yeah. Look at us go.